Good evening and welcome to Nilenbergshire Council's council meeting on the 26th of July 2022, and I am Mayor Frances Ayres. So welcome this evening to those here in person and those who are watching at home. Members of the public are advised the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Nilenbergshire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the country in which Nilenberg is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nation people living in Nilenberg, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nilenberg and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. I'll now ask Councillor Ramcharan to read the Good Governance Pledge.
As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and environment of Nilenberg, now and into the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Let me now introduce lead pastor of the Vine Baptist Church, Stuart Hunt. The Vine Baptist Church has been part of the Eltham community for almost 35 years, with both an Eltham campus and a Hurstbridge campus. The church provides 3 opportunities for worship and connection each week at 2 venues, along with various activities for people of all ages, for church attendees and the wider community. A number of Bible study groups cater for those who want to grow in or explore the Christian faith. In response to the COVID-19 crisis and the ongoing vital need for support and connection, recent programs have included a dinner for over 50s, a morning tea for retirees, a youth camp and regular playgroups. Similar events are planned throughout the year, including a men's camp. The church is also privileged to partner with Diamond Valley Community Support in their food drive and gift appeal programs. The Eltham campus in Nyora Road serves as an unofficial reserve for locals and is a popular place for exercise and recreation. The natural outdoor amphitheatre, which normally hosts the community Christmas carol service, was well utilised over summer, enabling predominantly outdoor church services. Please, would you come forward, Stuart, to share a prayer with us?
Thanks very much. Let's pray. Oh, dear God, historically we stand towards the end of a long line of people who have sought you, and generations before us, confessing their mistakes, acknowledging their limitations, declaring their need for someone who knows, someone who cares, someone who has not and will not give up on humanity. And the last couple of years have been tough, God. We keep waiting for it to get better, but it doesn't. We seem to be going, in many ways, from bad to worse. The losses pile up and the solutions are running out. We're beginning to doubt ourselves, and we may even be losing hope. Apparently, we're the lucky ones, and so we need help, God. And you are the Ancient of Days, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. You have seen it all. And whilst the world shifts beneath our feet, you are immovable, unshakable, unchanging. We thank you that you see. You see it all, the good and the bad, and yet you don't turn away. We thank you that you know You know it all, the right and the wrong, and you don't shy away. We thank you that you love. You love all, the near and far, and you never walk away. You are near, you are willing, you are able, you are full of love, full of patience, ready to forgive, and full of grace. So be with us tonight, Lord. Bless us, grant us your wisdom, and give us your peace. Would you bless us and keep us, make your face to shine upon us and be gracious to us? Would you turn your face towards us and give us your peace? Amen. Thank you.
Thank you for that, for coming along tonight. We'll now move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is apologies, and as all councillors are here, we'll keep moving. Presentations. We have one condolence for this evening. John Chenhall. I would like to acknowledge the recent passing of well-known and respected Diamond Creek local John Chenhall. John was a retired engineer who served in the Armed Forces in Darwin. He's a past president and 10-year committee member of the Diamond Creek Bowls Club. John is also a past president of the Diamond Creek RSL and spent many years rattling his tins and selling poppies and Anzac badges to raise funds for the Diamond Creek RSL. For a number of years, John coordinated and led most of the Remembrance Day and Anzac Day ceremonies at the Diamond Creek War Memorial. He helped grow these commemorations from just a handful attending to hundreds, involving local schools, community groups, and families. John spoke regularly about the meaning of Anzac Day at many of our local primary and high schools. He also worked with former service personnel suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and supported legacy by collecting and by visiting those in need. John was named Senior Citizen of the Year at Nilenbergshire 2018 Australia Day Awards. His dedication to our community and commitment to honouring the legacy that the fallen have left behind is an inspiration to all of us. He will be greatly missed. Our thoughts are with John's family and friends at this time. I'll now move on to confirmation of minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to move the minutes as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Egan, thank you. I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 8, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Is there any councillors here who have any disclosures to make? I remind you that should a conflict arise as we get to the item, to please name it before we go into the motion. Item 9 is petitions, and we do not have any. Item 10 is questions from the gallery, which we do have. Is Mark Jones here? No, okay, I can't read that one out. Just a reminder to community with putting in questions, for us to be able to read them out, the resident needs to be here in person. So unfortunately I can't read Mark's question out, but that will be sent back through to him. Sue Omeron. Great, thank you. I'll read your question. Could Council ensure that one large tree stump be retained during the tree removal works in the Council managed land at the front of Eltham Lower Park as a historical marker, and so it can be carved into seating in the future? And the response is, Council officers will review and look into retaining at least one Monterey cypress at the entrance of the Eltham Lower Park as a historical marker and potential future carving. And to also note that Participate Nilenberg is open for feedback until the 3rd of August for the Eltham Gateway project as well. Thank you. Do we have Sarah here? Thank you. And Daniel? Great. As your questions are on a similar topic, I'll read the questions out and then answer them both at the end. So this question is from Sarah Flolt. With the news of a hospital to be built on Ryans Road in Diamond Creek, I would like to know how Council plan on making an already congested Ryans Road safer, as well as more equipped to handle the increase in traffic on an already ill-equipped single-lane road. So that's question 1 from Sarah. Question 2 is, how does Council intend on making the footpath or the lack thereof, specifically from 407 to 435 Ryans Road in Diamond Creek, a safe place for pedestrians, for kids walking to and from school, for people with prams walking to the hospital, for elderly and for all pedestrians walking in this specific area? I'll now move on to Daniel Harris's questions. As residents from these addresses, we have no safe area to walk behind the metal safety barrier that line the road, so have to actually walk on the side of the bitumen, on the side of the metal barriers. How does Council plan to deal with the dangerous bend from approximately 419 to 435 Ryans Road, Diamond Creek? And question 2, proposed new hospital at 405 Ryans Road, Diamond Creek. How does Council plan to show the nearby residents a road and traffic plan to accommodate this new facility to the area on an already busy, windy and dangerous road that has no footpath, safe area to walk on the same side of the road to the hospital is, sorry, I've not read that correctly, road that has no footpath, safe area to walk on the same side of the road the hospital is being built. So I'll answer both of those now. The Eltham Area Community Hospital is a state government project undertaken by the Victorian Health Building Authority, or VHBA. It is understood that the VHBA, appointed by the Minister for Health, has been actively working to identify and assess land in the Eltham Area District for the purposes of a community hospital. This work is undertaken entirely separately from Council. Accordingly, Council has not been afforded the opportunity to gain a comprehensive understanding of the proposal and its impacts. Council therefore cannot comment on the decision-making process or associated implications of the state or its representatives. In addition, Ryans Road is managed by Victorian Department of Transport under the Road Management Act. And any questions about the project, including the impacts on Ryans Road, will be best put to the VHBA as the responsible authority. And you can also send your feedback to the VHBA via the communityhospitals@health.vic.gov.au email. But Council will advocate to the Department of Transport for improved traffic and pedestrian safety outcomes along this road. So we're going to be doing that. So thank you for your questions. So now we'll move on to item 11, reports of advisory committees. Thank you, Councillor Perkins.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that Council notes the minutes of the advisory committee meetings reported as per attachment 1.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Perkins, do you wish to speak to the report? No. Councillor Ramcharan? No. I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now move on to item 12, which is the officers' reports. The first item here is the adoption of access, equity and inclusion policy. Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 adopts the Access, Equity and Inclusion Policy at Attachment 1. 2, authorises the Executive Manager of Community Services to make any further minor changes to the policy that may be necessary and are inconsequential in nature. 3, makes the adopted policy and accompanying documents publicly available on Council's website. And 4, thanks submitters and advises them of the outcome of the consultation process.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Ramcharan, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, look, and I'll try to keep it brief because I think I spoke at length on this at the PCC after we received community feedback. And really, just to sum up what I said, I think officers did a really incredible job with this, of reaching out to a whole range of diverse communities and getting feedback from people who generally aren't very well represented in submissions. And that's so important with a policy like this, because this policy is there to address access issues and equity issues for a whole range of diverse groups, and also acknowledging the intersectionality aspect of that. And it's just so difficult to capture what everybody needs, everybody in all these different diverse groups. And officers really went to that effort to reach out to them, which is never an easy job. We got some incredibly valuable feedback, and it was wonderful to see that actually being incorporated into the policy. So this isn't the end of the to-do list in terms of access, equity and inclusion. There's a heck of a long way to go in order to make all council programs and services accessible and equitable, and to make sure that everybody can be included. But this is the starting point, where we've finally got a policy that says how we're going to achieve that within the organisation. And I'm really proud of the work that we can already see officers doing, and really look forward to what they'll be able to achieve over the coming years once this policy's in place. So really looking forward to endorsing it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Amtrak. Councillor Duffy, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I support Nilenberg Council's Access, Equity and Inclusion policy, which outlines Council's commitment to accessible, equitable, inclusive practices across all areas of Council. For those experiencing disadvantage, it's an ostracising and discriminative experience. Through this policy, we commit to celebrating the diversity of our community and actively working to reduce inequalities. The document itself is one that I'd encourage the community to read. It's well put together and easy to understand, and particularly the principles of equity on page 9, and also the commitments that Council's making on page 11. Outside what Council is doing, I'm really excited about the efforts that are being undertaken by our community groups, particularly our sporting clubs, to champion inclusion. Eltham Redbacks Football Club has around 900 members, making them one of the largest clubs in Victoria. Redbacks have 55 teams from 3 years old to over 45. Teams for boys and girls, men and women. Girls and young women represent around 40% of Redbacks playing group now, and this number is increasing year on year. This is a great outcome when we look at where women were in this sport many years ago. Redbacks have increased. This increase is a direct outcome of the focus the Redbacks Executive Committee has towards improving gender representation at the club. Women also hold 55% of team manager roles, 18% of the coaches are women, and the number is growing. And this is above the general average within the state. They're also working hard on giving referees more of an opportunity as well, which is great for young women. And also for men and boys in our community to see that, power doesn't rest with a single sex. You can't be what you can't see is a mantra that we've often heard as girls, and that's very true. I'd also like to point out and congratulate Eltham North Wanderers Cricket Club and Eltham Cricket Club. Both are launching a seniors women cricket team in the upcoming summer season. The Eltham Cricket Club is also opening their 22-23 season with a Wurundjeri Welcome to Country and a focus on reconciliation and a reconciliation action plan. We've also seen Eltham Wildcats Basketball Club and the Diamond Valley Basketball League actively promote Indigenous pride and mental health rounds. So the actions of Council as an organisation is one thing, but the influence Council can have and the ways that we can assist the community I suppose, make that trajectory even greater, because we're able to provide grants and financial support to the clubs that are in our community that are trying to walk the talk of what we're trying to do in this policy. So, I'd just like to say congratulations to those outside of Council, as well as the Council officers who are working towards this overarching strategy for us.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Would any other councillors like to speak? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. It's a really good document, and I'm really proud to be on council endorsing this. So thank you to everyone who's put work in behind it. Now move on to the Climate Action Plan Year 1 Implementation Plan for 2022-23.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 endorses the Climate Action Plan Year 1 Implementation Plan 2022 to 2023 in Attachment 1. 2, notes that a review of climate action progress and outcomes will be presented to Council annually. And 3, notes that a draft of the Climate Action Plan Year 2 Implementation 2023 to 2024 will be prepared in late 2022 for consideration via the annual budget process.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Payne. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, look, I'm really impressed with what we've ended up with here for the implementation plan. It's long. There are a heck of a lot of actions in there. It's incredibly ambitious. And I think in terms of really showing that we are serious about our climate action plan, this implementation plan does exactly that. It takes a whole range of strategies that were put together in the development of that climate action plan and ideas that have been floating around for a long time that we've all wanted to do and really need to get round to it. And this implementation plan is a commitment to start doing that work this financial year. So it's going to start happening now, and that's just so exciting, and it's just such an important thing to see. I'm not going to go through each of the actions. It's there on the agenda for anybody who wants to read through the whole thing. But one that I'm really excited about, which it's not just going to have positive impacts for climate, but it's also going to have positive impacts for our community from an economic perspective, and that's the idea of environment upgrade finance, which one of the actions in this implementation plan is to actually start investigating how council can offer environmental upgrade finance schemes. And what that means is we'll be able to pay for people to put solar panels on their roofs or install double glazing or better insulation or electric heaters, whatever it may be. And then they can pay us back over time through the savings on their energy bill. So it gives people that opportunity to do an upgrade now without being out of pocket in the short term, reduce their electricity bill and pay that back over time. And I think that's something that everybody can benefit from, whether or not you care about climate change, and we all should, but whether or not you actually care about it, everybody cares about their hip pocket. And this is something that's going to help reduce our community emissions, which we desperately need to do. And it's also going to help residents to save money. So I'm particularly excited about that action, but it's one of many. And I'm also very pleased that our budget for this financial year does put some money towards climate action, both operationally and from an infrastructure perspective in terms of climate-related infrastructure. So that, coupled with this implementation plan and the broader climate action plan, really puts us on the right trajectory to bring our emissions down, meet our targets, and really show some true leadership on climate change, because I think that's what our community and the rest of the country and the world really is what people are calling out for. And I'm really pleased to be part of that.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to reiterate Councillor Ramtaran's words about the importance of the Climate Action Plan. This sits in the background of the decisions we'll be making going forward, and I won't go through all the 57 actions, but just a few of them. Clearly trying to make Edendale a climate action hub, Edendale Farm. Promote groups and solutions like Clean Energy Nilenbergshire, who are working on community batteries and local food connect, and community farms. The Practically Green events, making street lighting LED instead of the vapour lighting, and EV charging stations. These are practical commitments. They will be built, they'll be constructed, and they will hopefully change the way we work into the future. So I just commend the plan.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Would any other councillors like to speak to this? Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that if we go back 1 week, last week the Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek outlined issues that have been raised in the State of the Environment report. It's a 5-year report put together by scientists, and it's 274 pages. I haven't read the report, but I've read the highlights of the report, and it talks about, the poor condition and the risk of deteriorating further under the pressures of climate change that our country's facing. Talks about climate change, habitat loss, invasive species, pollution, a whole lot of other things. But I think the thing that's clear here is that, by having a climate action plan, we can be proud of what we're doing. This is something not to be scoffed at, and, we need to act seriously. And so these actions are commitments that we want to make sure take place so that we can leave the world a better place. So, that's all I'd like to say is that, it's not being alarmist, but it's being important, and it's caring for country in the way that we really need to if we want to make sure that there's a future that's one that is enjoyable for all of us and for those that are to come after us. It's a long time to be alive, and in such a short period of time, there's been so much change in terms of the natural world that we live in.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors wishing to speak? No. All right, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Now move on to the Nilenberg Draft General Local Law 1, Public Exhibition. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to move the motion as follows. That Council 1 endorses the draft Nilenberg General Local Law as per Attachment 1 to allow for inconsequential corrections, notice proposing a local law Attachment 2 and the inclusion of all incorporated documentation for the purposes of undertaking public exhibition in accordance with Section 73(3) of the Local Government Act 2020, which includes A, draft procedure and protocol manual as per Attachment 3 with changes, and B, the Live Local Plant Policy as per Attachment 4. 2, invite submissions on the draft Nilenberg General Local Law 1 to Council between the 1st of August and the 22nd of August 2022. 3, considers public submissions at the Planning and Consultation Committee meeting to be held in October 2022. 4, notes that any person who makes a written submission in relation to the draft Nilenberg General Local Law 1 and requests to be heard in support of their written submission be invited to talk to their submission at the October 2022 Planning and Consultation Committee meeting. And 5, acknowledges and thanks the significant participation of the community to support the development of the draft Nilenberg General Local Law 1.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Ramtran. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I won't be long. I just wanted to thank all the council officers who put this together, Rosa Zuzoulis and her team, and of course Heath Gillette, who will be Community Safety Manager going forward and overseeing the implementation of the draft local law. We have these local laws because councils are roads, rates, rubbish and regulations. We need them. They allow us, thousands of strangers, to live together in relative harmony, and most of the draft local laws simply make sense as they are written. And I just wanted to remind people that regulation affects every part of our lives: the food we eat, the water we drink, the clothes we wear. They're all regulated, and we need them to have a working society. We need a community that knows what the rules are and agree to follow them. And I just wanted to remind the public that this is the final round of the public consultation. It will be out for public comment between the 1st of August and the 22nd of August, and we will be taking written submissions at the PCC meeting in August. And also just a note, in terms of the Live Local Plant Policy, we have nearly 800 Indigenous plant species here in the Shire. Many are threatened. Biodiversity starts with what we plant and what we care for. Trees are important, there's no doubt about it, but they are the scaffold for a lot of the biodiversity, so they're not the whole answer to biodiversity. We just need to protect all vegetation as best we can. So I thank the team, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Ramtran? No. Any other councillors wishing to speak? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're now moving on to Nilenbergshire Council Communication Strategy 2022 to 2025. Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
I'm happy to move that. Thank you. So the recommendation is that Council formally endorses the Nilenbergshire Council Communication Strategy 2022 to 2025, instructs officers to commence the development of a detailed plan through which to implement the strategy, authorises the acting executive manager governance, communications and engagement to make further minor changes to the strategy that may be necessary, and lastly, makes the adopted strategy publicly available on Council's website.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy, do you wish to speak?
Just briefly to say that communication is everything. You know, the tone of how we speak, what we say, how it's interpreted. You know, having a council communication strategy is really important. It shows that we listen to our community if we're asking questions and if we give the community the opportunity to answer those questions. So it kind of goes hand in hand with what we've as a council said. We want to be transparent. We want to be having an engaged community, and you know, this communication strategy sets that up. You know, it's council looking at what are the ways to communicate with the community, when and how, and you know, we've got 65,000 people that live in our shire. They're all ages. Some have internet, some don't. Some like things online, some like things in paper. So, you know, there's been a lot of work that's gone into putting this strategy together, and it can only make us better at what we do in delivering the messages that we need to community to be able to do a better job. But I think the thing for me that stands out most is that the aim of this strategy is to enable a two-way flow of communication, and that the community is able to communicate with council when and how it finds most appropriate. So without council input, without the community input, we're just a council operationally doing what we think is the right thing to do. What makes it firm and cemented is that we're doing what it is that the community want us to do. You know, so that's why we're here. We're representatives for the community to provide their voice, and the council officers do their job to enact what it is that we have in our council plan. So in a long roundabout way, I'd just like to say let's keep communication short and sharp, because that seems to have the best effect.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne?
I just wanted to reiterate how important good communications are to the Shire. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ricardo Prince, our comms and advocacy lead, while he is still here. This is very much his baby, and he's poured so much work into this and setting the tone for council, which is honesty and truth and trust and authenticity, and that's something that, and brevity, hopefully, something that all councils need. So I just wanted to say thank you to Ricardo.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors wishing to speak? No? I'll just note too that this will be reviewed annually, which is good. Can always update or change things, but also that this will be embedded in business as usual, which is really important too for officers, so that it's not a standalone document. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We're now moving to Nilenbergshire Heritage Review. Is that you, Councillor Perkins?
It is, thank you, Mayor Eyre. I'll move that Council adopts the final version of the Statements of Significance and Citations for Stage B as per Attachment 3 of the Nilenberg Heritage Review. Number 2, adopts the Nilenbergshire Thematic Environmental History as updated and post-World War II addendum to the Thematic Environmental History. That's Attachment 4 and Attachment 5. Number 3, requests the Minister for Planning to exercise powers under Section 24 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to prepare and approve an amendment to the Nilenberg Planning Scheme to apply the heritage overlay to places as recommended in the Heritage Review Stage A and B on an interim basis, and requests the Minister for Planning under Section 8A of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to authorise the preparation and exhibition of an amendment to the Nilenberg Planning Scheme to apply a heritage overlay to places as recommended in the Heritage Review Stage A and B on a permanent basis, and publishes a final version of the Statements of Significance and Citations for Stage B, as per Attachment 3 of the Nilenberg Heritage Review on Council's website, and finally publishes the Nilenbergshire Thematic Environmental History as updated, which is Attachment 4, and Post-World War II Addendum, which is Attachment 5 on Council's website, and finally notifies the owners of places identified for application of the Heritage Overlay as per the recommendations of Stage A and Stage B Heritage Reviews of Council Resolution and Next Steps.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Perkins, you want to speak?
Yeah, so this is a huge body of work that's been undertaken by this council, and indeed it's been some years since we've seen this amount of work done to support heritage in the Shire. It actually amounts to the total of 66 places, which we're asking the Minister to apply an interim heritage overlay, and then after consultation, hopefully finally a permanent heritage overlay. There's been 2 lists, Stage A, which Council adopted Heritage Review Stage A, and the priority list for Stage B in June of last year. So Stage A recommended a total of 22 properties, which met the threshold for heritage significance to have a heritage overlay applied to them. And Council also included the Eltham Memorial, which was added into the Stage A recommendations. So the Eltham Memorial, there was a citation done on that quite some years ago, but for various reasons there was reluctance from successive councils in the past to apply for a heritage overlay on that property, which we know to be council's property. It was deemed to be appropriate to apply heritage overlays on various private properties, but for whatever reason, council and previous councils were reluctant to apply the heritage overlay on its own property at the Eltham Memorial. So we've got over that hurdle, but there's also 21 properties, further 20. Oh yeah, there was one property out of that 22 that a heritage overlay was placed on it because there was proposed development, and that property would have been lost. So that one actually now has a heritage overlay on it. That reduced the number of properties in Stage A down to 21. There was a further list, which is known as Stage B, and there's a total of 45 properties that met the threshold for heritage significance protection, and they were recommended for application of the heritage overlay. So in total, there were 3 properties identified across Stage A and B that had triggered the need for an application of an interim overlay. So they could be taken out of this work that needed to be done tonight in this motion. So we're looking at a total of 66 places recommended by Stage A and B heritage reviews for an interim and a permanent heritage overlay. So I know if we had more people in the gallery, we'd probably have a Mexican wave, because this is the most work that I think a Nilenberg Council has ever done to support, and we have got a Mexican wave. Thank you. This is the most amount of work that a Nilenberg Council has ever done to support local heritage, I believe. There's still a few steps to go. The Minister has to do the necessary approvals to commence the amendment, and then there'll be a fairly long and detailed, I would imagine, public consultation process that is required as part of the amendment process to give the property owners the chance and the opportunity to either support or object to the notion of a heritage overlay going on their property. So it's not a done deal. We need the Minister to commence the planning scheme amendment, and then it's quite a process then to finalise that planning scheme amendment, and then statutory processes that need to be undertaken as part of that. But the body of work, just in terms of citations, it's almost 2 reams of paper here in terms of citations that have been done. An update to the Nilenbergshire Thematic Environmental History that's been revised from 2016. It's been updated. So heaps of work. Just like to thank and congratulate Rosa and the team for all the work that they've done here. It has taken 2 years, and it's work that has sat on someone's shelf for a long, long time before that, and it's great to see it undertaken, and I commend the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak?
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate the words of Councillor Perkins that this is a great body of work. I also wanted to have a shout out to Context Consulting, now known as GML. In order to decide significance, someone has to make a call about that, and there's a lot of criteria that they have to go through. Context had to dig through heritage studies, rate books, parish plans, old newspapers, the State Library, public records, and have not only come up with criteria for deciding what is or is not significant and the process that they come by that decision, they've put together the thematic environment history, which is a very dry title for something that is in fact a wonderful collection of stories about this shire. Every page is a revelation. It talks about the gold mining at Yarmouth, when St Andrews was the biggest population in the shire, when Eltham North advocated for its first train station, which was about 100 years ago, when Diamond Creek was a wall of water, Shute Street disappeared into a body of water that went all the way to the pub, and when the Bend of Islands had some protesters sitting in front of bulldozers to make sure that those trees couldn't come down. And of course, Eltham, which has a colourful history, including the time when a lot of the work that happened at Montsalvat was done quietly and without council's knowledge, but with the knowledge of some of the Shire engineers. So I just commend the work done. This is a terrific body of work, and just the thematic environment history on its own is a wonderful record of the whole Shire. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Would any other councillors like to speak? No? I'll put the motion to the vote. Oh, sorry. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I'd just like to also follow on from what Councillor Payne was talking about with the Nilenbergshire Thematic Environmental History revision document. It's actually really good. And one of the things with the way we look at history is we view history with what's come in terms of built form. There is a whole history before the white history here in Australia, and one of the great things in this document is that it does talk about the traditional ways of the landscape and Aboriginal landscape at the time of settlement, and it talks about here the population was housed in Miamias or Maiais, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that in the Wurrung language, saying the traditional Aboriginal shelters or houses, with the exception of married couples who were housed in slab and bark huts. It's a shame we don't have any of those to be able to consider in our history overlays that are happening at the moment. But I would encourage people to read about the history of before we started to build our buildings and put our farms and all of those modern day components to what it is that we're trying to protect at the moment, because that cultural heritage, the First Nations heritage, is really important. So let's not forget about that when we're thinking of what are we trying to protect. And with this document, one of the shames for me, it's so thorough with this, the Phase A and the Phase B, but the building that is left out is the Eltham Memorial, and that's where Council did in January of last year, through a notice of motion, vote to put heritage listing on that building. I think the thing that is that would be great is if the community could know more about the heritage of that building and why it's special, because we don't actually have a citation in this for them to be able to read, but there is information that can be provided if there are people that are interested, and maybe Jim through the Eltham Historical Society can help people access that, because it is a very colourful story, and it is also one of those stories of women creating something and then the men taking over to be in the final photos when the ribbons are uncut and all of that. So it just shows throughout time our history is not just the buildings that we live, but it's the how we live at the time that we are living as well. So, you know, I'm just really pleased to be part of a council that is looking at this protection, and there are in the Edendale ward a number of private properties that have been identified to receive heritage listing, and one of the things that I'm very pleased to know is that the owners of these places that have been identified will be contacted to ensure that they're aware of what's being proposed. Thank you.
Any other councillors wanting to speak on this? No. I'll just say that I'm really pleased that we've got this on the table tonight. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you to everyone for all their work on this. We will now move to... Oh, missed it. There it is. Australia Day / Jan 26. Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
I'm happy to move this one. Thank you, Mayor. Wearing my Not the Date to Celebrate t-shirt, I'd like to move the recommendation that Council 1 endorses moving the Australia Day Awards program, currently held on January 26, to another date and combined with another event. 2, continues to run a citizenship ceremony on Australia Day, January 26, requests a future report from officers to confirm the new date, name and categories for the Nilenbergshire Awards program.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Duffy, do you wish to speak?
Thank you. In Nilenberg, we have so many talented, generous, dedicated and exceptional individuals and community groups. Each day, extraordinary things are done as ordinary acts by people of all ages in Nilenberg. It is right that we recognise and award this community service and achievement. But in my opinion, January 26, Australia Day, Survival Day, Invasion Day is not the date to celebrate. I'm proud to be an Australian, and I'm one of many Australians who struggle with celebrating Australia Day on January 26, now that I know more about the impacts of European colonisation on First Nations peoples since the arrival of the First Fleet. January 26 has been declared a day of mourning by Aboriginal people since 1938, when the Australian Aborigines League and the Aborigines Progressive Association, on the 150th anniversary of the arrival of the First Fleet, held a day of protest against the callous treatment of Aboriginal people by white man's seizure, and called for new policies which would raise Aboriginal people to full citizen status and have equality within the community. They're their words. Much has improved for First Nations people since then, but so much has not. I'm grateful that here in Nilenberg there is a desire to celebrate First Nations people, and I appreciate the grants Council extends to our community and the actions we collectively take to do better in walking the path to reconciliation and becoming an ally to the Wurundjeri. Last Thursday, Eltham North Primary School held a First Nations Cultural Celebrations Day that I was invited to attend along with other members of the Nilenberg Reconciliation Group. A day of learning and listening. Wurundjeri Elder Uncle Bill Nicholson conducted a smoking ceremony. The children and the community all walked through the smoke. He welcomed us onto country and explained that not long after white settlers arrived in Melbourne back in 1835, the Wurundjeri people were pushed off their land and forced to cease traditional ways, and only 18 Wurundjeri people were left alive. There's more about this in the thematic history, so I encourage people to get the details of that. So that was Thursday. Then on Friday, the Eltham Library held a ceremony to officially open the Dreamtime Sky Mural in the Children's Garden. Wurundjeri Elder Uncle Ringo Terrick conducted a smoking ceremony, and we had the privilege of listening as he welcomed us onto Wurundjeri country, and spoke of the trauma still being experienced by Aboriginal people. Uncle Ringo shared that he was stolen from his family, and as a child, he spoke of the Wurundjeri creator Bunjil, the eagle, and Wah the crow, likening these sacred moieties to the Christian religion's Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That same day, Wurundjeri Yorta Yorta artist Simone Thompson shared with me the effects of intergenerational trauma she feels on January 26. She asked me, why would anyone want to celebrate the anniversary of a day my family was murdered, my aunties raped, my land taken, my children stolen, my language forbidden? On Friday, at the Diamond Valley Sports and Fitness Centre opening, we heard from Wurundjeri man Daniel Ross and joined the joy of Vicky Clark's mural of the family and future. Council's doing a lot to help with Wurundjeri acknowledgement in our public places and in our community. One final end to the week was on Sunday at St Margaret's Anglican Church in Eltham. We heard from Wurundjeri Elder Uncle Colin Hunter. How lucky are we, those of us that have been exposed to this magical week of learning from Wurundjeri and Aboriginal people. Uncle Colin talked to us about the Wurundjeri land that local councils have been taking rates on for over 187 years. He asked, what do we, or what do they, give back? We also heard from Djari from the First Peoples Assembly as he spoke of the torment his people, the Palawa of Tasmania, endured as they were exterminated from 20,000 people to just over 200 and banished to prison conditions from the mainland of Tasmania to Flinders Island. The truth of the past is more than uncomfortable, it is shameful. The way forward is not to ignore the past but to speak of it and how it has shaped advantage for some and disadvantage for others. The least we as Nilenberg Council can do to acknowledge the ugliness of January 26 is to remove our municipal awards from a day that represents pain and trauma for Aboriginal people. We could also introduce an award category that recognises community groups championing reconciliation. Finally, I stand by the principles stated in Nilenberg's Reconciliation Charter, adopted by councillors back in 2008, and look forward to us cementing meaningful actions as we develop our new Reconciliation Action Plan, and Australia Day becoming one of the, as Australia Day has become one of the nation's most divisive days. I would just finish, if that's okay, Fran, 1 second, just to finish the sentence.
Sure.
That's all right, thank you. It now appears that Australians are rapidly changing their minds over whether the 26th of January is the most appropriate date to celebrate our nation, our National Day. And I look forward to when the federal government shares this sentiment of what's been coming out in the National Australia Talk surveys and changes the date of our National Day to one that everyone can be proud to celebrate.
One sentence, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I'm happy to support the motion, but as is typical with most discussions, there may be different reasons for me supporting the motion as to others. And mine is, my time on council, 12 years now. I've been to every Australia Day award ceremony that there's been. The Wurundjeri have always been acknowledged. There's been a lot of work and a lot of communication and a lot of education for the public at those ceremonies. We've had smoking ceremonies, raising the flag. Wurundjeri has always been, recognised, celebrated, and their history has been spoken about. And indeed, some of the elders that I've heard in the past have sort of said it's a good program from at least some of them in terms of being able to tell the story and having an event where they can tell a story. So what I see with why we're moving the awards away from January 26 is really about giving the opportunity for members of the Nilenberg community a better chance to nominate others and to attend the ceremony or the awards. What we sort of have January 26, it's a public holiday. At the moment, people are normally off on holidays. It's often a long weekend. They tend to be away. It's after the January period. It doesn't give a great opportunity for people to make those nominations over the Christmas period. People have just basically in holiday mode. So we're looking at moving the date of the awards ceremony. This doesn't advocate for changing the date for Australia Day. That's not what this motion's about. This motion is about moving the awards to later in the year to give more people the better chance to nominate. I've always seen the awards, and the awards have always been a recognition and a celebration of volunteerism in Nilenberg, and that's our greatest strengths. That's what amongst our greatest strengths, I believe, as a community. So I've sort of thought about this more recently and agree that an event such as a volunteer appreciation evening that's held in National Volunteer Week would probably be an appropriate event for the awards to be celebrated on. Note that we'll continue to run the citizenship ceremony on Australia Day, which is January 26, because basically we have to. We're running a citizenship ceremony on Australia Day. It's a federal government event. If the federal government decide to do something with Australia Day in terms of moving the date from January 26, I personally will be more than happy and comfortable with that. But at the moment, it is what it is, and we have no choice but to hold our citizenship ceremony on January 26. So that'll continue until the federal government and the Minister for Immigration, change when citizenship ceremonies are run, because we do it on behalf of the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Would any other councillors? Councillor Ramcharan.
Yeah, just briefly. Some councillors might have different reasons for supporting the same motion, and other councillors might support both reasons. And I actually completely agree with everything Councillor Duffy and Councillor Perkins have both said. I think this really has two real benefits, this motion. So moving the Australia Day, the awards program from Australia Day onto another to another event, it makes sense. It gives people more time to nominate because we don't get many nominations over that December-January period. And having it during Volunteer Week, I think really makes sense, rather than having it on a day when the main part of the day is a citizenship ceremony, and it sort of makes the awards feel like they're the lesser thing, which they are certainly not. So I think this is good for the awards. And on the flip side, I think it's a really good way of taking a stand and showing where our values lie. I personally do support changing the date of Australia Day to a date that we can all celebrate, but that's a decision for the federal government. We can't do that as a council. We also, as Councillor Perkins quite rightly noted, we can't move our citizenship ceremony. If we were to do that, then we'd lose the right to hold citizenship ceremonies altogether. So we're keeping that as it is. We will, as Councillor Perkins noted, continue working with Wurundjeri in terms of Australia Day, having those acknowledgements and welcome to countries, and having a really respectful conversation every time we have an Australia Day event. And I think it's important that we do that. But we can't move the date. That's not our job as a council. But moving the awards program is a step in the right direction in respect to that. And it also, I think, will make those awards much more meaningful and hopefully give them a bigger presence within our community, which will be a real positive. So I actually think this motion has two huge benefits for us, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Amtran. Any other councillors wanting to speak? Thanks, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Eyre. I just wanted to reiterate that I think if this motion points to a wider change in society, that's a bigger discussion that we're going to have in the community and as a country. Australia is and always has changed. We've changed our flag, we've changed our national anthem, we've changed our currency. We are constantly changing, and I think this just simply reflects the different weightings that we put on different days and how we look at ourselves in our past. The thing that has struck me most about citizenship ceremonies is the people who are least worried about our contested past are those seeking to become Australian citizens. And it's something we can learn from them. They are happy to look forward to the future and with clear eyes at the past. And I hope that we can do the same thing.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Would any other councillors like to speak? No? Before I put the motion to the vote, I also just like to say that we've heard some really great points tonight, and I hear them all and support them too. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We're now moving on to Officers' Report. Nilenbergshire Council submission to Whittlesea Draft Green Wedge Management Plan. Hand it over to you, the Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 endorses the finalised submission response to the Whittlesea City Council Draft Green Wedge Management Plan at Attachment 2, and 2 submits the endorsed council submission to Whittlesea City Council for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Amtran. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Amtran?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duffy. I was worried I wouldn't get a seconder there. And as much as this is, different council, it is still really important that we make this submission. They did ask us for our input, and I think we're really well placed to give that input. We do have an interface between the Nilenberg Green Wedge and the Whittlesea Green Wedge, and I think we really need to be able to work with them in order to manage that land. And being in a similar region to Whittlesea, we can actually really comment on their Green Wedge Management Plan from a regional context. So a Green Wedge Management Plan has to be put together by any council who has Green Wedge land, which includes us. We have our own Green Wedge Management Plan, and Whittlesea are working on their new Green Wedge Management Plan now. It's an incredibly important document. It can outline a whole range of information and research that's been done into matters that concern the Green Wedge, and it outlines actions and strategies to make sure that the council can best protect that Green Wedge for everything that we value about it, including the environment, the biodiversity, the bush, the recreational activities that that you have opportunities for, especially within Whittlesea's Green Wedge, because they have a lot more Green Wedge land than we do. We actually have more rural conservation land here in Nilenberg, whereas in Whittlesea a lot of that is Green Wedge zone. So slightly different use there, but it's still just as important in terms of providing that that break between the urban areas, the lungs of Melbourne, and contributing towards biodiversity and conservation. I think officers have done a really good job putting this submission together. It really talks to some of the key issues, and I think really backs up a lot of what Whittlesea have already written in their Green Wedge management plan, and it just shows that we are mostly on the same page in terms of how we manage our Green Wedges, and hopefully we can see a lot more collaboration between the two councils going forwards once Whittlesea have adopted their plan, because we do have that common border where our Green Wedges right up next to each other, and we could achieve a lot if we work together on that.
Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Duffy? Any other councillors? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We now move on to proposed community market for Yarmouth Park. I'll hand that over to you, Councillor Stockman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the motion that Council accepts the officer's recommendation as per the papers.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Stockman?
Yes, thank you. This item kicks off an expression of interest process to find an operator to run a market at Yarmouth Park. A market at this location would help activate the park, help small enterprises sell produce and products, and provide an opportunity for the sporting and cultural clubs using the park to attract new members. The EOI process ensures a transparent decision-making process and allows Council to assign a licence to an organisation that best meets Council's objectives. There are currently 7 tenants that utilise various parts of the park for sporting and cultural purposes, including golf, fly fishing, heritage museum, archery, horse riding and flying model aeroplanes. It's a really great precinct there, and areas are open for passive public use. The EOI proposes days of operation to be between 8:30 and 2 p.m. on Saturdays. In recognition of the space being used by existing tenants on certain days, the EOI includes special conditions, including not being able to operate during horse and pony club competition days. And I'd just like to add there can be some collaboration there in between with the actual stakeholder and the market organisers when they come in, just to make it work well. A traffic management plan will also be required, and we look forward to receiving submissions and making a decision on this at a future council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Perkins?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, certainly support the motion. You know, there are many sporting clubs in Nilenberg, particularly in the more urban areas where they're busting at the seams and really having trouble coping with as many members as they have. But I understand that some of the sporting clubs at Yarmouth Park could actually welcome additional members, and I think the activation of the space that a community market might bring could potentially be a win-win for community, the sporting clubs, and hopefully the operator who hopefully will be a charitable non-for-profit. I certainly wouldn't support a commercial business running a market, but if it's a non-for-profit, similar to what happens at other markets across the Shire, I think it could be a very, very good model. I think it's a good spot. I support Councillor Stockman's work that he's been doing in this space. He's been very, very keen to see Yarmouth Park activated with more connections, to Nilenberg and to Whittlesea, I think. And my understanding is that the sporting clubs are supportive. If they're not, we will certainly hear from them perhaps very shortly. But the officer advice is that the community clubs are generally quite supportive. The Horse and Pony Club of course, we don't want to run a market that conflicts with their very, very busy show days. So, yep, happy to support the motion and look forward to seeing the LOIs as they come in.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Would any other councillors like to speak? No? I'm just really pleased to support this motion for residents of Yarmouth and surrounds, so, which is great. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Now moving on to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, terms of reference and committee membership endorsement. And I'll hand that over to you, Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Mayor Eyre. Yes, I would like to move the motion that Council 1 endorses the 12 recommended applicants listed for appointment to the 2022-2024 Economic Development Advisory Committee and refer to confidential attachment number 1. Applicants A through to L, who I will read out shortly. 2, acknowledges and thanks all community members who submitted nominations for the Economic Development Advisory Committee and advised unsuccessful candidates. 3, resolves that the panel recommendations and scoring in attachment 1 to remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of confidential information in section 3(1)(f) of the Local Government Act 2020. 4, resolves that the successful nominees be named. And 5, endorses the update of the proposed Economic Development Advisory Committee terms of reference 2022 to 2024 as per attachment 2, amending the terms of reference to stipulate that 2 councillors and 1 officer as part of the membership.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne?
I'll be brief. I'm looking forward to working with the new members of EDAC. It's our way of keeping in touch with economic development and businesses in the Shire, and I will be naming the members very shortly.
Councillor Duffy? Any other councillors? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. I'll now get you to announce the names.
And I would like to congratulate Nicole Stavely, Chanmali Tregambe, Claire Knoll, Terry Hutton, Kiralee Romero, Philip Merendez, Simon Lepastrier, Mira Goval, Katrina Naish, Debbie Maziarts, Nicholas Costanzo, and George Apted. And I welcome them to EDAC.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of those new advisory committee members. All right, we'll keep moving. Now moving on to Officers' Report, which is the intention to lease land to LMS Energy Proprietary Limited for solar farm. Councillor Stockman.
Thank you, Mayor Eyre. I'd like to move the motion that Council accepts the officers' recommendations as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Payne.
And thank you, Mayor. Again, this item relates to a lease for the proposed solar farm on the former landfill at Yanyeen Road, Plenty. It follows a public notification and submission process on the matter which came up at the last Planning and Consultation Committee meeting. The lease term covers the estimated asset life of the solar farm infrastructure and is set at a rental amount that reflects market value of the land, being a former landfill, and the primary objective of enabling development of a renewable energy facility. Council would always remain the owner of the land. The lease would commence once the engineering contracts have been executed, and the solar farm is capable of offsetting 100% of Council's emissions of all electricity consuming buildings, infrastructure and assets occupied and under the direct control of Nilenbergshire Council, and is an exciting part of our climate action plan.
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne?
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate how important this is. This is an unusual motion because it's new for the Shire. I look forward to a time when this won't be so unusual. A solar farm will be something that councils do all over Metro Melbourne and in regional Victoria and Australia. People have talked about why is the land so cheap in terms of rental returns. The truth is this is a small mortgage on the future and renewable energy. It's our attempt to dip our toe in the water, and I hope that we can extend renewable energy in the Shire and really get serious about this. So I very much support the motion and look forward to that energy falling from the sky and offsetting our emissions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors wishing to speak? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll now move on to tender report, contract 2122-085, IT hardware and infrastructure, end user computing. I'll hand that over to our IT guru, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I might already be the only person who knows what that means. I'd like to move that Council 1 resolves to accept the proposal to enter into a lease contract for the provision HPPPS end-user computing equipment and services for the lease term of 3 years with Hewlett-Packard Financial Services up to the value of $900,000 excluding GST. Number 2122-085, IT hardware and infrastructure end-user computing, 3 years from the date of acceptance of equipment. 2, authorises the Chief Financial Officer to finalise and execute the contract documentation. 3, authorises the Chief Financial Officer to approve changes to the operational requirements throughout the term of the contract. 4, advises all tenderers accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Ramcharan, do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks. Councillor Egan. Would you like to speak?
Yes, just briefly. We all need computers. We have several of them in front of us right now. A lot of those computers are on lease. So that's really how we provide council staff with the best technology. And that's a really important part of making council an employer of choice, making sure that our staff have the best technology to work with, and really nice computers with touch screens and fingerprint scanners and all those other things. But also that's what powers the organisation. So it's a really important thing to have, and by having them on lease, we're able to really save money that would be otherwise be spent buying them and then selling the old ones and finding ways of disposing of them. It's all handled for us when they're on lease, so it makes it a lot easier. So that's what this tender's about, and yeah, happy to endorse it so the staff can continue having some very good laptops.
Thanks, Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Egan.
Just very quickly, because I don't have much of a voice, just to let Councillor Ramcharan know that I actually got my first Apple Mac back in the very early 80s, so that makes them I've had Apple Macs for 40 odd years, so they were invented before you were born, Ben. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Thought I invented them.
Thank you for that, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors wishing to speak? No. Yes.
I just want to thank both councillors for making us feel young and old at the same time.
Thank you for that, Councillor Payne. All right then, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Again, carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to tender report contract 2021-058 Facilities Maintenance Services Panel.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would like to move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thanks, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne?
I have nothing much to add except that I'm about to read a list of contractors successful in supplying services including air conditioning, electrical services, general facilities, glazing, gutter cleaning, painting, plumbing, irrigation, building, testing and tagging and compliance. These are the important contractors that keep this place going, and I look forward to reading out the winning tenderers.
Thank you. Councillor Egan, would you like to speak? No? Any other councillors wishing to speak? Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
I'm just going to say one thing about this. It's just that, I lament at how many contractors that we have. In the good old days, lots of jobs were done in-house by organisations, whether that was a manufacturing company, whether I worked for an airline, we did our own catering, we had people employed doing various functions for the organisation. And so whilst we're putting this tender report up today, I know that there's been a thorough process that's been put forward through our procurement team, and I'm not having any difficulties with that at all. I'm just wanting to state that I think it is a shame that a lot of these jobs are contractors rather than jobs that could have and would have once upon a time been done by council staff. Particularly a lot of the handyman work, a lot of the cleaning, and even some of the more trade-like work. And I do acknowledge that on our staff we have a female carpenter, so I'm glad that she's in our properties maintenance team, and I hope that she stays. But it is just a comment to look at, my maths isn't quick enough to add up the number of contractors that we're using for all of these services. I understand we don't have the skills for all of them, but there are many people that would have once upon a time been employed at a local council doing some of these jobs, including relatives of mine in other shires in other parts of the country.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors wanting to speak? Otherwise, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Councillor Payne, you make the announcements,
Yes,
please.
indeed. So, in the category of air conditioning maintenance services, I'd like to congratulate ASM Chiltech, Renowned Services, and Total Air Services, Victoria Proprietary Limited. In electrical services, congratulations to Albert Electrical Group, Blended Services Group Proprietary Limited, and Highlight Electrics Proprietary Limited. In the category of general facilities, this sounds like the Oscars, general facilities maintenance and services, I'd like to congratulate Blended Services Group, Crisp & Co. and Maple Constructions. In glazing services, congratulations to Eltham Glass and O'Brien Glazing. In painting services, congratulations to Blended Services Group, the Prestige Painting Group and Eastern Property Services. In plumbing, congratulations to Blended Services Group, GF&J Sharp Plumbing and Reed Plumbing and Drainage Solutions. In the plumbing irrigation category, Century Rain, Tees and Greens Proprietary Limited. And as registered builders, AWS Services, Blended Services Group, Eastern Property Services and Maple Constructions Proprietary Limited. Congratulations.
Thank you for reading those out. Congratulations to all of those companies. All right, we'll now move on to informal meetings of councillors' records for the 26th of July 2022. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'd like to move a motion as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thanks, Councillor Perkins.
Nothing to say except this is business as usual. By law, we have to take notice of all the informal council meetings, and this is just a list of those with who was attending.
Thank you. Councillor Perkins? No? Any other councillors? Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay. There are no notices of motions. There is one delegate's report. Councillor Ramtran, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Eyre and I have put together a delegate's report on the 2022 National General Assembly of the Australian Local Government Association, which we attended in Canberra last month. That's been tabled with governance, so it'll be available with the minutes once they're published. Just to give a quick summary of the event, and there's certainly more there in the delegate's report. It was a really valuable event. We met with councils across the entire country, and it was just so incredible to get an understanding of the diversity between those local governments, but also some of those common issues that we all have. One of the key issues that was raised by almost every council there was housing, and the fact that we really are in a housing crisis in this country. And I think we're quite lucky here in Nilenberg in respect to that, because when you hear some of the stories from other councils, while we may think we've got it bad here, some councils are really struggling. They've got people just living in tents all over the place. So that was a key issue that came up. We also heard a lot about funding, particularly financial assistance grants from the federal government. And while we didn't necessarily get a full commitment for them to be increased, it looks like it's definitely on the radar of the new federal government, and they were certainly receptive to a lot of the messages that came from councillors at that event. We met with Christy McBain, who's the new local government minister at a federal level, and she was very receptive to some of the issues that we raised with her, including a youth hub and action on climate change, working between local governments and the federal government. So it was a fantastic event. We really enjoyed it. We got a lot out of it, and we think that it really is a good forum for us to represent our community and take some of our local issues to the national agenda. Oh, and one other thing to report on, Council did put up a motion in relation to climate at the Assembly, but a number of other councils also put up similar motions. In the end, there was an attempt to pass all of them, but they were ultimately amalgamated into one, which did skip over some of the points that we had raised in our motion, but it did have the general gist of it, that we were calling on better action from the federal government in relation to climate change, and that was endorsed by the National General Assembly, and they will make that representation to the federal government. So I think that's really important, and it just shows what we can do when we work together with other councils across the country and put up a united front.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ramtran, and it certainly was an absolutely amazing opportunity to go and meet all the other councillors from around Australia and ministers. Certainly an honour to represent Nilenberg. So thank you for that, Councillor Ramtran. We'll move on now. There's no supplementary or urgent business. There are no confidential reports. And as such, I will close the meeting at 8:21. Wish you all a good night and stay safe. Thanks a lot.